start the recording. Eric, you good?
You're recording now.
It does not say it's recording, Eric. Am I missing it?
It is on my screen.
I can't hear you.
Yes, at least on my screen, it says it's recording. And I got the
One
normal
second.
warning for, am I recording?
I'm sorry. Say that again. I had my volume down.
As far as I understand, it's recording. It says recording.
It does? Everybody else good on that?
I see that too, Jeff. Yes.
Okay, I'm not seeing it on mine, so that's fine. So I'm going to call to order the Town of Andover Board of Selectmen special meeting. Oh, sorry, one second. I'll restart. Calling to order the Town of Andover Board of Selectmen special meeting, February 25th, with our first call to order the Pledge of Allegiance. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which we stand, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Before we get to public speak, I had Eric, and the reason why we're a little delayed, I had Eric go check the community room because there was a little bit of a mix up on the website. So there is no one in the community room, so that we know of right now. Public speak. So I'm going to start with Caitlin McIntosh Greenhouse.
Hi, I'm just here on behalf of the Board of Ed. I know we sent you guys a letter, but we are requesting a town meeting specifically for solar on the school. And we are requesting as a board that that meeting be only about that and that you schedule a different town meeting to address the other concerns. We think that the issue for the school is specific for the school. Thank you very much.
Okay. Valerie?
I'm all set right now, thank you.
Joey Neva?
I'm all set, thank you.
Tess Grouse?
I'm all set, thank you.
And Jesse, I do not know your last name. Okay.
Hello?
Hi, Jesse. Go ahead.
Oh, no, I have nothing. I'm just observing. Thank you.
Yep, no problem. And I believe the phone number ending in 2345 is Attorney O'Brien.
Correct.
All right. Did I miss anyone? Oh, I'm sorry. Mr. Becker? Hi, Eric.
Just speaking as a board member, as an individual as well, just want to comment on the solar project that Caitlin also commented on and bringing this to the Board of Selectmen for a potential town vote. As we see, it's a good way to build community support. It's a big visible project. It's adds complexity and the duration of it. So that's how the board brought this to your attention and hope to have your support with it.
Okay, thank you. Thank you very much. Did I miss anyone else? Sorry about that, Eric. I was going to bypass Mr. Becker. I didn't mean to do that. Anyone else that I miss? Nope. Okay. So let's move on to item 3 and discuss scheduling a public meeting to discuss and act upon the items that need to be addressed. Item 1, the solar project for AES. 2, the request from the fire department for an ordinance change to increase the tax abatement. 3, an ordinance requiring regulating dogs on the recreational fields. 4, financing for the fire department squad vehicle. And 5, which is a potential to send to the town meeting a line of credit at Webster Bank. This is for discussion purposes only. So let's go through the individual items. The solar project for AES. Does anyone object to sending the solar project to town meeting?
I feel that they should have their own meeting, a town meeting. We can attend it, but I think the school should have their own, the Board of Ed should have their own meeting. And that's what was requested in the letter that we received from them.
Okay. Anybody else have any issues related to a separate meeting?
I mean, I think a good compromise at this point because they wanted their own separate meeting. And I think it would be difficult to arrange transportation for the seniors or people that want to use the buses to come to the public meeting. So if they want it separate, I have no problem with it, but if we could do it on the same night, maybe just do it, first and then close that meeting and then go through the rest of the town issues. Because I think the Board of Ed should be at the table to discuss this. We should get the engineer back that Dennis had to answer any questions because he was very informative and he answered a lot of questions that I had, and he would probably be able to answer a lot of the questions that the public had regarding the project. I was kind of 50-50 on it, but after I talked to him and saw that there's some financial benefits to it, I'm supporting the project.
Okay. Caitlin, I would just like to ask you, because I'm not really in favor of separate town meetings. We don't schedule them very often. We try not to schedule them very often. And what we try to do is to put various items that need to be addressed all in one meeting, so we don't do this that often. So would it be really that, I mean, honestly, I don't see there being a problem related to the solar project if it is what it is stated to be, which is a no-cost lease for the community. So my question is, if we just did one public meeting, would it be that bad?
I think per the way that it was passed by our board, that wouldn't be what we had asked for, and then I would need to go back to my board to re-ask them. So if you guys could do a back-to-back meeting like Jeff is suggesting, but have it be a separate meeting and then the other one start right after, that would, I think, meet the auspices of everything, and I include, I understand the issues in terms of transportation for people that may need help with that to get to a town meeting. But yes, it was specifically asked for that it be a separate meeting.
Okay. Eric, just so I understand the logistics of this, if we attempt to say we're having two town meetings on the same night, do we have to sit there and go out of the gymnasium and recheck in, or?
No, I don't think you would. You would just close one town meeting and open another town meeting if that's what you want to do. I think that's definitely possible, and there's no reason you can't put both town meeting announcements on the same mailer. So I think it's doable.
Okay. But then I will support the separate meetings, but on the same day. Does anybody have any issues related to the solar project? I mean, obviously, we're just scheduling the meeting, so we don't have to discuss the solar project. So,
Hey, I need to say something about this.
go ahead.
I'm sorry. I'd like to stay out of it, but I can't. I just want them to understand. You could have two meetings. Eric is right. The same night. But the meeting has to be run by, the rules of the town meeting. And that's under the charter. Okay, it has to be opened by the first selectman. And the moderator has to be elected. And we've got to follow the procedures of a town meeting. This is something that really needs to be okayed by the town of Andover, in my view. And I feel very strongly about that.
And that's fine.
But,
So
it's not my,
Dennis,
I don't have a vote on the board, but
understand.
that's what I'm telling you.
I get it. So I would expect the town meeting to run in the appropriate manner. The issue that I hope the Board of Education members understand is that there will be a vote on that solar project. And I know Eric referenced it, and I'm assuming, Caitlin, your understanding of that. I mean, the reason for us to bring the solar project to a town meeting is specifically that there's a potential penalty clause if something occurs. We understand, everybody says it won't happen, the salesman says it won't happen, the Board of Education says it won't happen, but we need to put that forth to the town residents and give them, because of our form of government, it's not a different, it's a town meeting form of government. The town meeting is the legislative body. The town meeting has to sit there and understand it because I, as one member of this board, will not sit there and take the responsibility for saying yes on that type of project. So there will be a vote.
Can I just, so that's just so that you guys understand as a board, that's why we asked for you to have a town meeting, because we understand how large of a project this is, even though there's no financial contribution to it. So,
Okay.
thank you.
All right. So then we're all good to go on that. Did everybody have a chance? So we'll move on from the AES solar project, and when we vote on this, we'll vote to schedule a date. And I know that the Board of Ed has a requirement to sit there and do this quickly. Eric, when's the earliest date we can have a meeting?
March 10th,
March 10th.
and meet our legal notification requirements.
Isn't that our meeting date?
That would be our meeting date. So March 10th, 11th, and 13th is what the town clerk's office says are the 3 earliest dates we can do it. Or you could do the 12th, but then you butt up against the Board of Education meeting.
So we have a ZBA public hearing and special meeting on the 11th.
Correct.
And what is that related to, Scott?
The field. New field with the playground, pickleball courts.
Anyone have any recommendations as to what they'd like to sit there and see done?
Can I ask a question? Is the 13th good?
Will that impact the timing on this, Caitlin? Well, we're gonna have to do it the 13th because everything else is scheduled. Anybody have a problem with scheduling, the town meeting date to be the 13th? Okay, so we'll sit there and use that as our holding date right now unless something else comes in. So we have item 2 on 3, the request from the fire department for the increase in their abatement. Anybody have any issues moving that to town meeting? Okay, I do not. Anyone have any issues with the ordinance regarding limiting dogs on recreational fields within the town of Andover? No. Item 4, financing for the fire department squad vehicle. Eric, in the packet, and we have, I'm assuming that today we would have to determine which term we're going to select for this.
So I would suggest that you set a 10-year term. The problem is at this point, we still really don't know when the delivery date for the fire truck got pushed back again. So right now we're looking at a July date for getting the squad vehicle. Whereas I was under the impression that we were looking at a May date to get the vehicle. So the exact terms are not going to be determined until we get closer to the date when we can sign a final, because those agreements change.
We're not going to go, in my head, you're not going to go with a 15-year because the way that this document is written, they have the ability to change the rate after 7 years. Right? So you don't want to do that. So you're looking at 10 years or 7 years, and we don't have in the budget enough money to pay it off over 7 years.
Correct. You would have to increase the annual allotment to the fire department to do that.
Okay. So I'm gonna make a motion that we, I'm gonna make a motion that we select a 10-year term for the financing options for the fire department squad vehicle.
I'll second that.
All right, further discussion on this issue? All those in favor? Aye.
Aye.
4-0. Item 5, the line of credit at Webster Bank.
So we had anticipated trying to secure a line of credit from one of the banks to make the payments for the time period between when we have to pay the contractors that are working on the bridge at Bunker Hill Road and when the time we get rebated. Because although this bridge is 100% funded between state and federal dollars, we're still on the hook to run the project and pay the contractors and then get paid back. But the Webster Bank kind of jerked us around for a while and then finally said we can't do it without hiring bond counsel. So I reached out to a couple of bond counsels and had a discussion about this. And both of the bond counsels said we can't actually, under state law, receive a line of credit as a municipality. The only thing we could do was go for what's called a grant anticipation bond or grant anticipation note. The problem is that takes the same amount of time and the same amount of paperwork and the same amount of money as actually bonding a major project. So it just doesn't make sense for this. We have money in both the Bunker Hill Bridge Fund and the Bridge and Culvert Fund. And if the Board of Selectmen, I asked Dennis to provide me a legal opinion, which I provided to the board, which basically says as long as the Board of Selectmen is okay with it and authorizes that, we can spend money from both of those funds and then rebate both of those funds when we get rebated. And so that should be enough to pay for the full out-of-pocket cost for the bridge, as long as the federal government actually pays, doesn't do something to jeopardize the actual payments that they promised. So that's what I'm suggesting. Although we were talking about pursuing a line of credit, I think that's, at this point, the cost basis for doing that is too high for it to be worth it for the town. It's slightly riskier floating it out of both funds and not, not having some sort of line of credit. But I talked it over with the town treasurer and she's comfortable with it, and she's not willing to pay for a bond counsel just for this short term of an event.
Have you had any discussions with CROG or any of the other groups as to what the other towns are doing related to these?
No, I have not.
All right. I mean, in the end, we do have enough available resources to cover the,
Sure.
What you're saying is those funds have 50% of the costs of the total project almost. What's the total project again?
That's still to be spent, 3.2 million roughly.
So the $1 million will cover 33% of the overall of the total costs, and then we would submit those to the state, assume we're going to get reimbursed for the $1 million, and then pay the next $1 million, and then submit to the state, get reimbursed.
Correct. I mean, we'll be submitting invoices, on a monthly basis. Basically, once a month, we should get 2 bills, one from the contractor and one from the construction inspection firm.
Okay. I have no problem not submitting we can't submit for the line of credit, and I have no problem not bonding or going to a bond council for this project.
And has this been discussed with Jay, just to make sure that this is not going to impact any of Public Works projects going forward this spring or summer?
No, the bridge and culvert fund that we're talking about is basically the money that's being banked for next summer's replacement of the bridge on Lake Road at Basola.
Okay,
So that's the town's match towards a state local bridge project that we've already got state funding for, but we're not gonna get the project in till next construction season anyway. And we should be far enough along that we don't need that money by then. The next time we might get a crunch is when we replace the Long Hill Bridge, because we'll need that same roughly $1 million swing when we only have about 450,000 in the, what we'll do is we'll basically roll the Bunker Hill Bridge Fund and just rename it the Long Hill Bridge Fund as soon as we're done with Bunker Hill. So around 27, when we do Long Hill, we will have already spent everything in the Bridge and Culvert Fund. So we will need to revisit this then, but that's 3 years down the road, so.
okay. And is the Board of Finance gonna have to get engaged in this? Do we suggest to the Board of Finance to do a budget transfer to one account, or is we just gonna pull it out of both accounts?
I'm assuming we'll just pull it out of both accounts as needed. We'll deplete the Bunker Hill Bridge Fund first, and then we'll deplete the Bridge and Culvert Fund second, but we'll refund to the Bridge and Culvert Fund first. That would be my strategy on how to do it.
Understood.
Okay. So I'm going to make a motion to schedule a public meeting for the 13th of March to discuss and act upon the AES solar project. The meeting to start at 7 p.m.
Seconded.
All those in favor?
Aye.
4-0. And I'll just make another motion to schedule a public meeting for March 13th to discuss and act upon the request for the fire department for an ordinance change for an increase to the fire department abatement. Discussion to act upon an ordinance not regarding an ordinance limiting access to canines on all and over recreational fields, and to act on approving financing for the fire department squad vehicle. This meeting will start 10 minutes after the end of the first town meeting scheduled for the 13th of March. Does anybody need any changes to that?
Sounds good.
Okay, second that. Let's go.
Second.
All right. All those in favor? Aye.
Aye.
4-0. Okay, item 4 in our agenda is discussion about what to do with a senior transportation vehicle. We've all gotten information from Eric and from Jeff Murray regarding vehicles. Jeff, why don't you lead this, because you're obviously much more familiar, or Eric, if you'd like to review your
Actually, I just went down and took a look at the vehicle before this meeting. We took a
Okay.
walk around and crawled underneath and took a look at it.
Okay.
So, as everybody's aware, it's missing the side skirting on the driver and the passenger side. This vehicle, it rides very low, so it's to me, it's not really the fault of the drivers. It's pretty, with the roads that we have around here and the dips, like curbing and speed bumps, it would be pretty easy to pull those skirts off of there. So, if those can be replaced, that would be great. I'm a little concerned about the corrosion. Looks like Public Works put some silicone in the holes that were into the cabin. I would probably consider suggesting before we do a permanent fix that we use like a rust encapsulator like Pore 15, and then we use seam sealer on the holes to tighten everything up, because the silicone is just going to trap the water in there and make the rust worse in the long term. So that would address that issue. I know Jay noted that there was some paint bubbling. I saw one little spot on the back passenger's fender, like right over the wheel well. Most of the bubbling seems to be on the hood. But if it gets significant enough, we could always get uh, a hood from a junkyard or something to replace that. I mean, overall, the body of the vehicle's in pretty good shape. It doesn't have a lot of dents, dings in it. It's just a skirting on the bottom. I'm a little concerned about the transmission. I know Eric quoted us $4,500 to as max. Discussions with Eric, that's maximum what we would hit to replace that transmission. But I've done some research and I really don't think we need to replace it. I think that vehicle has 98,000 miles on it, and going back through the service records and from talking to people, the transmission fluid's never been changed in that vehicle. And so it's probably pretty likely that that filter in that transmission is clogged, or it's just filled with gunk and it's not flowing properly. It's either that or there's a shift control module that's right in front of the driver's front passenger fender well. And judging by the corrosion that we have on the rocker panels, those do tend to corrode out and they get holes in them, and then water ingresses in them, and then we end up with a failure there. So it's probably most likely one of those two things, which would be a much lower cost than $4,500. And I know Jay noted that there was a significant coolant leak and the radiator was down quite a bit. I would suggest we do a leak down test on the cooling system to make sure that we should replace that one hose that he identified as a leak. After that, we should pressure test the system to make sure we haven't compromised the head gaskets on the engine. So we should make sure that that's holding properly. It's not an expensive test. It's something easily that a garage can do. And if that checked, I would probably do that first. And then if the cooling system holds pressure and everything looks good, then we could probably address the transmission issues, take it to a transmission shop. And if that's not a major deal to fix, then we get the corrosion issues fixed, because the corrosion itself doesn't really affect the drivability of the vehicle. It's just kind of more of a cosmetic type thing right now. If we can get that sealed up and get that fixed and get the mechanicals fixed, there's some issues with the shocks that we need to have replaced. It looked a lot worse when I saw it, but it really doesn't appear that bad. So if the head gaskets are good, the cooling system's solid, and we can get the transmission repaired for a reasonable rate, I don't see any reason why we shouldn't repair the vehicle and keep it in service. I originally was thinking we should not keep the vehicle, but just judging at the condition of it now and the replacement cost of it, it probably makes sense to try to look at repairing it.
Okay, any of the other three members have any problems with that?
Do you think that rock could be cut out and put a new piece in there, Jeff?
What I think should probably happen is, we could probably, there's a couple holes in there that are rotten. I said, I don't know what Public Works is doing now, if they would be interested in doing that repair and putting seam sealer on it and Pore 15, and just, Pore 15 works really great. It's a rust encapsulator. It will encapsulate any of the rust and keep any further corrosion from happening. And then that seam sealer would keep the water out of the cabin or the area where the passengers sit. It's a pretty simple fix. I don't know if they'd be interested in doing it, but before we took it to have the rocker panels replaced, I would definitely probably get that sealed up and get it fixed more permanently, because with the silicone in there, it's just going to hold the water and we're just going to get more corrosion. And I would rather do it now that we can get after it. But I don't think it's significant enough right now that it would hamper the vehicle. We could probably get another couple of years out of it until we got another replacement.
Okay.
That area is not compromised enough to worry about. There's no
No,
need to
it
cut
seems like
out?
when they modify that whole pan in that vehicle, it's basically the whole thing is lowered. If you look at it, it's not that far off the ground. So like when you see those panels missing, if they drive into a parking lot or something that's a raised bump or a raised curbing, it's going to catch those panels. It's going to rip them off. So I mean, the drivers maybe need to be a little bit more cognizant of that in the future if we do this repair. But I think right now we don't have the funds to replace that vehicle. So, I mean, I think doing our due diligence and having the transmission inspected and having the cooling system inspected. I mean, even Public Works, they can get a pressure tester from Napa and just do a leak down test on the cooling system. We can probably get that hose and replace it and just verify that the engine's good. And if they're willing to do that, I think we could probably take it to Terry's Transmission or another transmission shop in the area and have them take a look at the transmission. So.
Right. I agree, do the coolant first, run the motor, make sure it's still good.
Yeah, there's no sense of getting the transmission repaired if the head gasket's compromised. So, I mean, if the head gasket was bad, I mean, there was one thing, I don't know who was putting oil in it, but it looked like it was overfilled by a couple quarts. So I don't know how that happened, but if usually you get a head gasket leak, you'll have milky colored oil, you get water in the oil. So I'm probably pretty positive. I'm pretty confident that the head gaskets are okay, but we probably should I mean, the tester is $30. We should just put a tester on it and just check the leak down of it and just make sure it's fine. They may even have a tester down there. I'm not sure.
All right,
So,
Eric, can we
That
get
would be my
that,
suggestion.
can we get that done in the next couple weeks? So at our next meeting, we can, I mean,
Or even Du Bois, if we could take it to Du Bois, they could probably do a test on it too. They probably have the tester.
well, listen, you need that vehicle in circulation anyway, Eric, was my understanding. So let's do the testing that Jeff is requesting, and let's focus on trying to repair that vehicle so they can get back into service.
Yeah, let at a minimum right now, let's get the cooling leak fixed. Let's get the transmission fixed, and then let's try to schedule in the repair of the rocker panels, because that's just a cosmetic fix at this point. If we can get those holes sealed up properly, it won't be really a big deal.
Not a problem.
Excellent. Let's move on to item 5, decisions regarding the budget. Item 1, personnel cost discussion.
Yep.
What issues?
So there were 2 decisions that, as a board, you did not make up to this point, that I think the Board of Finance was looking for you to make, and they were things that were in the budget. Item number 1 was the question, actually, there were kind of 3 things. In terms of budgeted items, Jeff Murray asked to increase the budgeted amount for senior transportation maintenance by $3,500, specifically to allow annual undercoating, as well as the subscription for the car wash. So that, I think, is a reasonable request. I would suggest that you, as a board, agree to that. And then the second thing were the 2 salary items. One was increasing the line item for the senior center director, which would take that from a part-time to a full-time position. I know no decision was ever made on that. And the second thing was a proposal from Jay, which I endorsed, which was to promote one of the employees from maintainer 1 to maintainer 2. And those are really the 3 outstanding things that the Board of Selectmen had, regarding the budget.
Well, let's take the easiest one. So I'll make a motion that we increase the senior transportation line item by $3,500 to account for rust proofing and washing of the vehicles as necessary.
Second that.
All right, all those in favor?
All right.
Okay, let's discuss the maintainer position.
Sure.
So, does anyone have a problem with promoting that individual to maintainer 2?
So I'll just give you a quick synopsis on what that means. As of the 2025-26 fiscal year, a maintainer 1 would get an hourly wage of $25.06 an hour, and a maintainer 2 is a jump to $30.38 an hour. So it is a relatively significant jump. The employee in question has been employed full-time in Andover for 2.5 years. Prior to that, he was employed part-time for the town for 16 years before that. And he was also previously a full-time town employee when he was much younger before he went into business for himself. So in total, the guy's had more than 20 years of employment with the town of Andover. And he certainly has the skill set to handle any piece of heavy equipment or perform any task that Public Works does. So in my personal opinion, he's well qualified to be a maintainer too, and should be paid accordingly.
So you're talking a difference of $12,000?
Just over 11,000.
Does that include the contributions to Murph and everything that's?
No, that's just in salary.
Yeah, so we're gonna have additional costs for Murph and everything else, correct? That
Yep,
don't show up
correct.
in your figures.
Well, it's baked into the budget now, but into the MRF and the indirect costs, but it's not. It was never, a final decision was never made by the Board of Selectmen on that.
So all you're asking us to do is give our approval to that line item so that the Board of Finance can sit there and then evaluate it and determine what they want to do.
Correct. I mean, ultimately, two things have to happen. The Board of Selectmen has to agree to that in concept. And then the Board of Finance has to decide whether they want a budget for it. Because obviously he can't get promoted if there's no money to do it.
And because he's on a union contract, we cannot give him a stepped raise to move him closer to the maintainer two over 2 years, 3 years, whatever we chose.
Not this year. I mean, we could negotiate that or something similar to that potentially next year as part of a new contract, but for the upcoming year, no.
And Eric, other than what's the value for the town to do it? I'm just asking in a general question. I mean, I know it's a $11,000 raise for the employee, and that's positive and great, probably deserves it, but are we gonna get anything extra out of it, Eric? If we approve it?
Nope. Nope, same employee doing the same job.
Yeah, and Jeff, I kind of look at this as a public works expenditure. I mean, the last couple of years, we've invested heavily in public works. And we're gonna have a challenge right now this budget season, so I'm kind of on the fence with this one.
Yeah,
It's kind of it's a stretch.
I mean, I wish we had a way to step into it, like so we could step into it over 3 years or 2 years.
Yeah, the bump is the bump is significant.
Yeah. Well, I know we're gonna have a problem with the Board of Finance on this one anyway, so are there any alternatives, Eric? It's either 0 or 11,000.
Per the union contract, he's either a maintainer one or a maintainer two.
Well, what do we want to do? Do we want to sit there and not push that forward? Or do we want to push it forward and then let the Board of Finance decide what they want to do? Anybody? Scott, Ann?
I feel like it sounds like he's had a lot of years with us, maybe not in this position. Is that correct? That he hasn't always been in this position, but he has had our years of experience with us. I guess I feel bad if he's had a lot of years working for the town, yet he doesn't have as much pay as somebody who has had less years with the town.
Well, there are no maintainer twos right now, are there?
Yes.
Yeah, there
Who is
think there's
maintaining
two.
two?
Two others.
There are, right now we have one maintainer three, two maintainer twos, and one maintainer one.
Okay. So we brought the so Tommy is the 3, Zach is
Correct.
the 2,
Zach's a two, yep.
and who's the other one that's a 2?
Richard Bagan is a two.
Bagan. Okay.
Oh,
Based upon that, I would sit there and say
Right.
that you probably we need to sit there and deal with this at a different year and a different budget cycle.
Okay,
All right. All right, and the last one was related to the full-time or the part-time on the senior center program.
correct. Currently per contract, that individual's pay next year, next budget season will be $47,000 as a part-time position working 26 hours a week.
Okay,
And the
that's-
question is, you know, I do not believe that's enough hours for that job to be done well. You know, I think that should be a full-time position. But at the end of the day, it's not my job to make that decision.
Okay,
So again,
so it goes from a 26-hour position to a,
34-hour-week
so
position.
we're talking 8 additional hours. So one
Correct.
additional day. Um, Are there any additional costs other than the percentage increases that come with MRF and all the rest of the stuff? There's nothing large that we're going to deal with as a town related to those extra 8 hours?
Not that I know of, no.
I believe we built that building for a reason and that we should sit there and continue to move forward, and I have no problem with the extra 8 hours.
Jeff, I'd just like to say one comment. Our
Mhm.
assistant that we have hired, we're not even utilizing all her hours. So if her hours were being maxed out and our head, you know, our head person there was if Tess was doing 26 and Kim was doing her full 10, I would say there was some justification there. This is a new position. We're still trying to figure out what the roles and responsibilities are. And, you know, I just think it's kind of premature right now to kind of make a decision. And that's my personal opinion.
Okay, everybody else?
Eric, is it true that Kim is not working her 10 hours?
I would have to look at this week's payroll to tell you exactly how many hours she's worked. But remember, the job of the assistant and the job of the director are very different. Different pay scale, different expectations. You know, I can't tell you off the top of my head exactly how many hours the assistant is working.
Yeah, but if the director's overloaded, she should offload some stuff on the assistant, like scheduling the transportation, things like that. And if she's booked, like I said, if the two of them are completely booked and they don't have enough time, then I would be supportive of this. But, you know, I've been told multiple times that she has not been working her full 10 hours a week. So the justification to make this a full-time position when the assistant's not even doing the 10 hours is, you know, I just kind of have to question it a little bit.
Eric, do you go over her time?
Yes, but I mean, you're asking me off the cuff to remember exactly what hours I approved for one of 30 something people I sign off on.
Mhm.
You
Yep.
know,
I'm just asking if you remember. I'm not putting you on the
right,
spot.
I don't.
Because I would think that any extra, you know, she would be working the 10 hours if Tess is already maxed out. That's what I would think.
But I think we're missing it. It's not just a transactional issue of working the hours. It's what do you want to do with the program?
Hmm.
Do we want to sit there and move the program forward and try to continue to build functions and events that our seniors and the rest of the community can use? Or do we want to curtail that or keep it right where it's at? If we want to keep it right where it's at, then that's fine. Everybody can step up and say, we're going to keep it at 26 hours. I mean, we're talking 8 hours, but that's keeping that building open 8 hours longer.
Yeah, I mean, I'd rather spend our money, training 4 or 5 people that are local that would maybe want to open and close the building for special events. If somebody has something they want to do on a Saturday, and if Tess is not available, somebody that would be able to go in and lock up and check to make sure that the building was left in a satisfactory condition, because I know she can't keep all those hours, and we're eventually going to have to get some coverage. And if we had if that was my plan for Kim, is, for the system would be to kind of take up those days and times that, our director is not available.
Well, isn't that what Kim could be doing right now then? And we could expand the program like we had planned?
Yeah, we could, but that's the director's decision.
So do you really, but the point is that the hard part is not somebody sitting there when a program takes place. The hard part is somebody has to organize, schedule, figure out the food situation. That's where we're lacking, not on, because honestly, most board and commission meetings that occur there at night, nobody's there. I mean, we can enable volunteers to open and close the facility. The question is, can you run the facility, and can you do a good job of providing programs for the community? And can you run senior transportation and deal with all the drivers' issues and deal with all the scheduling in 26 hours? And I do not believe so. It's been my observation that Tess is working a lot more than 26 hours now. She's just not getting paid for it. And that, in my head is a problem.
Right. Jeff Murray, when we were at that the rec committee meeting, they all said that Tess's hours, she couldn't do the job on the hours that she has, that she would need, and they all expounded on this, that she needs more hours. I remember that, them saying that.
Yeah, I wish we had somebody from the rec commission on tonight. I just want to make an example. Like if you look at Glastonbury, I've rented JB Williams Park multiple times, and there's not a community center director doing that. That's somebody hired by the town of Glastonbury part-time that goes and opens up the gate for the event, welcomes the people in, and then at closing time, when your time is up at the pavilion, they come up and make sure that everything's clean and put away, and they lock everything down, and so you can get your deposit back. That's kind of what I envision for some of these nightly events. If we want to start doing things like that, is we really need to kind of look more into the community for people that'd be willing to do that and just pay a stipend for that, just like Glastonbury does.
It sounds like that's something that Kim would be doing.
Yeah, it could be Kim, it could be anybody. I mean, that's the thing. I mean, Tess is not going to be available 24/7. So we really need to expand on people that we could, trust to open and close the community center and
Are we
make
gonna
notes
have
if it's in good shape or not, like make sure the bathrooms aren't, vandalized and that type of thing, close the center up.
We're gonna have to get there, but we're talking transactional things, not
Right.
What are we doing to improve the programs and improve the overall utilization of that building?
Right.
And that's to my point, Jeff. If she's not going to be there at night, we're still paying her for 8 more hours. and she'll expand her hours, but they're mostly going to be in the daytime. We're going to have requirements to use that building in the evenings. And I don't see any coverage right now for that. And we need
Well-
to really look at that.
I mean, when you rented the park, didn't you pay a fee to rent the park?
Yes, I paid a fee and I paid a deposit, and they called a steward or somebody that was in charge of the park to open and close it for me.
Right, so if we chose the same model and we did something at the building, not a town function, but something that was outside town function, wouldn't we have some resources to pay the stipend that you're talking about to the individual?
Correct. That would probably be in the use fees.
And a usage fee.
But we don't have that in place, right? I think the big gap right now is getting coverage in the evenings for that center, because right now we're only covered till about 2:30 in the afternoon.
The issue that we're talking about with these extra hours is to grow the programs, not the individual transactions that you're talking about, to grow the programs for the.
Okay, but what programs are we talking about?
Shouldn't we be, that's what we're trying to do if.
I know if I had a list of things that we could do with those extra hours, I would be more acceptable to it. I don't want to hear, I want more hours. I want to know what you're going to do with those hours. I don't, because just to say I need more hours to do what I'm doing now.
Yeah.
I mean, if we're not utilizing the assistant, I have a hard time adding hours to a position that we're not even using the assistant.
Eric,
100%.
is Tess there a lot of the time that she's not getting paid for?
Yeah, I mean, she works a lot more than 26 hours now.
I came out of the playing pickleball the other day and she was there on Sunday.
Yeah.
Hmm.
You think that's a job you can really get done in 26 hours a week?
Probably
That's
not.
like saying my job is 44 hours a week, which is what my contract is. Yet here I sit.
Yep, and I do the
Nope.
same thing. I'm salary too, and I bill out way more than 40 hours a week, and I put it on my time because I charge my time to certain projects, and it's usually over my allotted time.
Okay, so.
Yep.
Are we having a problem? Are we gonna have a problem? So Jeff, you would vote no, and just
I think I'd
because,
vote no.
okay,
I think we've got
Joanne
enough hours for right now.
Joanne just messaged. She said she had an idea. We would like her to speak since she's on the Board of Finance.
sure, go ahead.
I appreciate it, and I never asked to speak in your meetings, but I've been spending a lot of time this year on budget items and salary items, and I know this was a hot topic item, so I figured since you're, digging deep here and deciding, and ultimately, I'm gonna put my camera on. Ultimately, it'll come to the Board of Finance, to see if it goes through or what happens. And again, being a little preliminary. Last year at our meetings, I know that this position was approved at a full-time position. And I'm gonna, just say that out loud. So we approved it at a salary that was in the budget for 50,000. I know that when the current person got hired, she got hired at a salary that's also posted, which is just a little south of that, for the 26 hours. We all know these kind of positions, you have to be available, you put a lot of time into it, that kind of thing. I had been kind of getting a little bit creative with knowing the different things that are at the town hall. So I know in the past, again, I was going to speak to this tomorrow night at our meeting, but you all have to hear it too. I thought of a compromise of possibly having the position go up to 30 hours. You all can decide on a salary. I can send a separate email with the details that I had come up. But we've also, before we had the senior/community center, we had employees in the town hall that were nice enough to take on additional duties. One of them, I'm not going to say a name or anything, I don't believe in that, but they get quite a sizable stipend to do what's called a municipal agent. The municipal agent has to be available, so I have my backup, but it is related to senior citizen duties, being available. So maybe we can think about it and move that, as nice as the person at the town hall was for doing it, and it goes up every year. If we eliminate that expense in your town budget to the tune of 6,100, and then when you add in the MRF, we're paying out 7,500 a year for that
Yeah.
position. We bring it over into the senior community hall with our new person, which makes sense to me. You know, I've gotten the information on what they do. They have to be, you know, give referrals in this. Give that a try. So you're saving money in the town line of that nice employee that was doing it. We have a little wiggle room to work with to offer the senior center person, you know, director who I'm going to go down and meet. I like to look into all of these things, and I know I've been talking to this. You know, we have a little extra money to put there, which maybe will make that position happy, and, you know, so a compromise of like 30 hours a week. We don't need to pay a person at the town hall a stipend anymore. We can move that over to the municipal agent for the elderly. So that fits that
But
bill.
aren't there two different, like totally two distinct different programs?
It's a social services program. I've done a lot of work since I never
Okay.
speak to something unless I've called about it. We have 3,000 residents. We've been nice enough to have this person do these duties when we didn't want to hire a full-time or part-time person. I never want to take work away from someone, but it seems perfect that now that we're talking about a full-time person in the senior center, why isn't that person the municipal agent and the point of contact for things that go with the elderly and senior citizens? Yes, there's a few. Again, I couldn't not speak tonight, Jeff. I mean, it's a nice compromise. We could save
Listen, Joanne, I have
$7,500.
no problem with you speaking. I just trying to keep it like on the topic of
You-
what we're trying to
Well,
accomplish.
when you're getting so close to deciding, you know, and it's gonna go yay or nay, I figured I'd let you guys all in on what I've been thinking about
Okay.
and researching.
So your thought is a 30-hour position for
Mhm,
the director as
mhm,
opposed to a 34-hour position. Okay,
mhm.
so Ann and Jeff, would you be willing to consider that?
Yep,
With the stipend going away, Jeff,
the,
you know.
the whole thing is, Jeff, our charter requires a municipal agent,
Yes,
and
I
so
know.
does the state.
I know.
Mhm. Yeah, I looked into that. So that would be our senior center director, where it should be.
Okay,
That's the only thing is it'd be a modification to her contract and her duties, so that would have to be a discussion with her and the town.
Right.
so so we're back to the issue that we've addressed, that we have
Thank
two
you.
no's and whatever. So Eric, we're gonna end up keeping the position at 26 hours.
Okay.
Okay. All right, does anybody have any other issues they need to address? Okay, we're gonna move on to item 6, public speak. Valerie, you're first.
I'm all set, thank you.
Joanne Hebert. Okay.
Thank
Tess
you for the
Grouse.
time. I appreciate it. I like to be transparent. I like to put my face out there, never behind any closed door. It's there. Thank you. Trying to save money for the town.
Tess Grouse.
I have nothing to add.
Okay. Jesse.
I'm good, thank you.
Kimberly Person.
Nothing right now, thank you.
Louise Goodwin.
Yeah, I do want to say something. I've been over at the senior center quite a bit, and I feel Tess is doing an excellent job. And I think the extra hours would have been more beneficial for her. That's my 2 cents, because I've seen what she does, and that's all I want to say.
All right.
Thank you.
Liz Lokech.
I'm all set for now, thank you.
Okay. Item 7, adjournment.
Motion to adjourn.
Second that.
And seconded. All those in favor? Aye.
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 Thank you very much.